when you look at whether that's projectors or DV LEDs, quite frankly, what are the IT and the AV managers looking for when it comes to the total cost of ownership for these things? Is it because there's no more lamps, because that's 100 years ago and I'm that old.
Do you remember that? We used to keep bulbs in the cupboard.
Yeah, well, no, not anymore. But you have not lived until you've had one of those blow up in your hand.
Yeah.
Major mergers and acquisitions and technology advances in the AV industry. What does all of this mean to the future and the health of the AV industry? All that and more next on AV Week. This is AV Week, episode 724, recorded Thursday, July 3rd, 2025. AV Health Check. This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of the biggest news and stories in the AV and IT world. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. This week, we've got a mix of M&A moves, major milestones, and a little projection magic that's turning heads around the world. Let's get into it. Hall Technologies has announced the acquisition of Etlona. This is a move that further consolidates the Pro AV hardware space, especially around AV over IP and signal distribution. Hall Technologies is already a player in switching, control, and extension gear. Now adds Etlona's portfolio of AV over IP as well as their own control and enterprise-grade solutions. If you are responsible for systems in higher ed, corporate, or large-scale collaboration environments, this matters. It's not just about product lines. It is about both of their ecosystems and how they're going to work both together as well as independently. It's about stability and the future roadmap alignment. We'll watch this as it continues to develop. Audinate, the company behind Dante, has acquired Iris Technologies. Iris specializes in software solutions for media networking. Let me say that again. Iris specializes in software solutions for media networking. This move is apparently part of Audinate's long-term plan to go beyond hardware and into scalable cloud and software-driven AV infrastructures. This means better integration for AV control, more flexibility across devices, and likely even more seamless Dante Domain Manager features down the road. Audinate has made it clear they're not just an audio company anymore. They are laying the groundwork for software-defined AV, and this is another step toward that future. In the higher ed corner, HETMA, the Higher Education Technology Managers Alliance, just dropped a big announcement this week. The Road to 10,000 initiative, the Road to 10K. They are aiming to expand their reach to 10,000 members and affiliates across higher ed and IT spaces. HETMA co-founder Joe Way said, quote, "Our vertical isn't just growing, it's evolving. This initiative is about making sure that evolution is intentional, inclusive, and built to last," end quote. This isn't just about membership growth, it's about building support. HETMA has steadily become a serious voice in manufacturer relations, DEI initiatives, and product certification for higher ed buyers. More members means more sway and potentially more influence with vendors to meet the real-world needs of campus tech teams. If you are in the education space, that would be a pretty good time to plug in. And finally, let's go big, quite literally, over in Singapore. A projection mapping event on the UOB Plaza skyscraper just set not one, not two, but 3 Guinness World Records, including the largest architectural project mapping display ever. The projections run Monday through Saturday evenings from 7:26 until 11 p.m. This was a tech demo in using cutting-edge projection, content management, and synchronization systems to create a 3D immersive campus on the side of a building. For those working in live events, digital signage, or really, really big installs, it's a case study in what is possible when storytelling meets scale. It's also a reminder, AV can still wow people, and we do really cool things. That wraps up your top stories for the week. We'll be back with our roundtable discussion where we will look at the state of the AV industry, both from an AV standpoint as well as a business standpoint, and the technology that drives us. This is AV Week. All right, with us to discuss the news and information we have gathered this week. First and foremost, my buddy, my pal, the sage of the AV industry, Brock McGinnis. How are you, sir?
I'm terrific, Tim. Very happy to be here.
Good to see you, sir. And a young man from, well, let's call him the mother country since the U.S. is celebrating Independence Day. Neil Flooster, how are you, sir?
I'm very well, Tim. How are you? I'm sweating, actually. It's very hot in the UK. It's very unseasonal, and the whole country's come to a halt because we don't know what to do with the heat, so we're not used to it.
Okay, define heat for me because, I mean, Brock's up in Canada, so they never get hot, but, as a big
Well, Brock's the only one who understand the measurement scale, so it was 33 degrees Celsius, so you're going to have to ask Alexa or Google what that is in American money.
90-ish.
Which it's been 90 here in St. Louis since I got back from InfoComm. So
yeah,
I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, but in St. Louis, there's air conditioning.
Yeah, we don't have that in England. We still walk around with bowler hats it's like Mary Poppins here. We all walk around in bowler hats going chim chimney and call blimey governor. Yeah, so everyone thinks of London that way. So.
And no air conditioning. Here I am heading over there, and you guys don't have air conditioning. I think I should have looked at that.
You're very welcome.
All right. We've got a couple things to hit this week. I did this story last week in the newscast, but 26 North has agreed to acquire what is being called a controlling stake in AVI-SPL from Marlin Equity Partners. Marlin is retaining a minority interest. Now, I'm not going to ask you guys later. I'm not going to give you a test, but the headline here is the fact that 26 North is taking over the ownership and ostensibly the control of AVI-SPL. Its leadership, at least as a week later, is not changing, right? CEO is not going anywhere. SPL, we all know, it's a global phenomenon, 70 offices worldwide. They've got a ton of Fortune 100 companies. They've got their own back-end remote support system, all that kind of stuff. The question here is, what does this look like and what does this mean both to the industry as well as to the folks that are in the front lines, the IT and the AV managers? And Brock, I am going to start with you on this. When we look at this and we watch, I have watched, you have watched, Neil has watched the march of private equity and investment banking into the industry. And for a moment there, it felt like, that's they're scaling back a bit. There's not as much activity. Then holy cow, out of what we us in the media out of left field, they've been talking this. That they've been having these conversations for 6 months, maybe even a year. What is the fact that private equity and folks that are looking for places to invest their money for a return, right? They're not doing it out of the kindness of their heart. They're looking to make a return on this. They continue to find, both integrators as well as manufacturers to invest their money in. What does that say about the health of the industry and these companies?
I think it's really positive.
Okay.
I've never been a fan of private equity and what it does to AV companies, because I've always thought of us as kind of a small cottage industry and everybody's like family and those big mean bankers. 26 North are big time. So this is the guy that owns the Philadelphia 76ers, the New Jersey Devils, the Washington Commanders. This is one of the biggest shooters in the private equity world. And the fact that 26 North doesn't actually own a lot of companies. They're not a brand collector like the previous owners were.
Yeah.
They're more strategic lenders and initiators. It's like AVI-SPL, I think, has moved from a small bank to a Wall Street bank.
Wow.
And I think it's a big deal, and will position them well for future growth, because I think now they can probably get their hands on as much working capital as they would ever need to continue the consolidation trend that's going on. For integrators that are serving the enterprise markets.
Well, Neil, that actually is where I was going next. Is one of the articles was writing about the fact that AVI-SPL now can expand their growth through mergers and acquisitions, and you look around at the environment, and it's a little bit of a morbid game, but we can all play it. We go to SCN's top 50 integrators, and go, okay, who are they going to who are they going to buy on that list, right? And we can start from the bottom and go up, or we can stop at the top and go down, right? And number two, and has been number two for years, is diversified. Do not misquote me. I am not suggesting that SPL is going to buy diversified. I'm not saying that in any way, shape, or form. But that's what kind of a game that we play is. You look and go, okay, who would that be? But Neil, what does that do both to the industry, but also to the end users who are not then left with fewer choices when it comes to picking an integrator?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely consolidation going on in the market at the moment. The market's in a weird position and a place at the moment. There's obviously, there has been a lot of changes with regards to staffing in companies, and again, I was hit by that very much in March. I know a lot of other people have been more recently. We were talking at InfoComm about the industry being more iterative, certainly from the hardware vendors and product launches and things like that. There isn't the big update. So it really is the case of, you've got to do what you can with what you've got, I guess, from a hardware point of view. And the integrators have got to then try and work out how they're going to add value to that and how they're going to, work in this new world. So the fact that they're coming together, there's been other moves as well. I think, you guys have, CTI have done some stuff and some announcements, and obviously, who's going to be next to try and consolidate that, I think there's definitely going to be some more consolidation. There's always going to be the small players, the niche players, the startups that are going to be there and able to do that. But I think if you are a blue chip company, you'll want someone that's got ISO 9001 and 2702 and all of those accreditations, and will be able to back that up with a security policy. And again, from a US point of view, that's probably they want Fed support and UCAPL and JITIC and all that kind of stuff. And you can't bankroll that stuff if you're a small little startup organization, because it costs a lot of money to go through those processes and to get that level of accreditation these big companies want, with all the threats and the security and stuff like that. So hopefully that this will flow some money in, and it will allow them to differentiate themselves to be a real player in that space and give themselves a differentiation. I'm hoping they're going to obviously invest it into whatever it might be, AI, or again looking at trying to add value to this through services. We've seen again the management tools and things like NetSpeak and things like that. Maybe they can servicize it, add some wrap around this to provide some value that differentiates themselves from the others. But it does seem to be that we are moving into the large players, certainly at the top end of the market, with AVI-SPL diversified and the other sort of top 3, top 5 that can offer that kind of capability to a customer.
No. Brock, before I get off this, talk for a second about the differences between the startups versus the bigger players, because one of the things that happens when let's say a smaller medium company gets acquired by a bigger player, you're going to have folks that are going to join up and sign on, and absolutely, I'm in it for the ride. Let's all welcome our new bosses. But there are some folks who are going to what? No, I enjoy working for this size company, so I'm going to leave, and they're either going to start their own or they're going to join somebody else who is roughly that size. What is the advantages and disadvantages of those two vastly different sized companies? Is it what Neil was saying with all the certifications, or is it where the bigger companies aren't as nimble, right? Because they are so big and they have so many other commitments.
It tends to be the type of customer that you can deal with.
Okay.
Right? If as an employee you like doing huge financial institution projects and rolling out 150 rooms a week, and being part of just a mammoth wave, and providing that enterprise level of service, then you're going to fit right in. If you like doing one room at a time, you like doing custom, as a design engineer, you like choosing your own product as opposed to having it imposed on you by corporate standards. If you like knowing your end user customers by name, as opposed to number, you're going to want to stay in a smaller enterprise. And I think that's really, really what happens. I've kind of worked a bit in both. And they're very different worlds. It's very different working in an environment like I am than working for AVI-SPL. We get people coming to us who didn't fit in well at AVI-SPL or Diversified, and they poach a lot of our people because typically they can pay better, or they have all of these advancement schemes and HR stuff and things that a smaller business doesn't offer. So tends to come down to the personality of the individual.
Okay, all right. We have our buddy Robert Heron take a look at the display technology that came out of InfoComm 2025. There was quite a few, and the reason I like having Robert take a look, Robert's super smart, and he has a very different take on display technology in general. Just if you're not familiar with Robert Heron, go look him up on Wikipedia, because he calibrates displays for fun, right? That's what he does. But a couple of things he came back with. Number one was even more high brightness projectors, higher resolutions, right? We're not quite to a predominance of 8K yet, but 4K is certainly has gotten entrenched. But also direct view LED and those mounting capabilities. But you've also got scalable, lower cost displays that are super eco-friendly and great for like mission critical and stuff like that. Neil, when we look at the display technology in general, when it comes to especially InfoComm, when you look at whether that's projectors or DV LEDs, what are the IT and the AV managers looking for when it comes to the total cost of ownership for these things? Is it because there's no more lamps, because that's 100 years ago and I'm that old.
Do you remember that? We used to keep bulbs in the cupboard.
Oh, 100%. Dude, I have changed my fair share of lamps. Thank you.
Poly RPX. We used to have the rear projection on the RPX, and you had to keep three. You had to change all three, because if not, the brightness of the three screens would be all out of sync and stuff like that. And they were like, God knows how much money each for the bulbs and stuff. Yeah, are we still doing that?
Yeah. Well, no, not anymore. But you have not lived until you've had one of those blow up in your hand.
Yeah.
I speak from experience. But what is it that they're looking for when it comes to display technology? Is it a total cost of ownership? Is it something wow, right? What is going to be the long-term forecast for I don't want to put projection versus DV LED, because I think that's a tired and pretty lazy way to put that. But what are they looking for when it comes to their display technology, both in the corporate boardroom as well as higher education?
Well, I think there's always the chase, isn't it? In the world of video, it's always been the resolution chase of like 720p HD, 4K, 8K. There's that race. In the world of display, it seems to be kind of brightness and luminosity and black levels and things like that. Because again, I think from a content point of view, 4K is kind of okay, and 8K is still not quite there yet. Interestingly, InfoComm, I've never been in that world. I've been in the UC world, cameras and microphones and speakers and stuff like that. So, but I was actually asked to represent LED Studio. They make a range of LED displays, and again, I went over there as a complete village idiot when it came to LED displays, and they started throwing all of these acronyms at me about SMD and chip on board and all of this kind of stuff. And it is a completely different world. And I think the challenge from an IT manager's point of view is if you don't live in that world, they'll then throw this tech at you, and you kind of go, it's a big telly, isn't it? I just want a big telly, that I don't care about if it's this chip on that or the other. I need a 100-inch, 200-inch, whatever it is, display to be able to fill that wall. I think the interesting thing that I learned, though, is that from you were talking about sustainability and lifespan and things like that. The really interesting thing is they're all pushing, again, these massive brightness levels, but in reality, you turn them down to probably 50% brightness so you don't burn your retinas. And actually, these things last for like 25 odd years, and you can change out. The great thing about the direct view LED, which again you can change out individual things, you can then match it and things like that. But the thing, again, I didn't kind of work out, because I asked the stupid question of like, well, where's the sweet spot or the tipping point between like LCD, traditional TV, and an LED? And you know, why would I go for one versus the other? And the interesting thing is, obviously, when you want to try and get one in a lift, because you can't get more than 120 inch or 108 inch or whatever in a typical goods lift. But the fact that these things come in kind of kit form, and you can throw them up on the wall with a lovely mount and put them up there, and that you can get to a 0.7 pitch on them now, that gives you the level of resolution and detail and stuff. They really have, again, come of age. And I would say really eye-opening to me to spend some time with LED Studio and understand exactly how these things work. And I think the price points also come down to a point that's making them more cost effective. The problem with projections has always been that, you know, you'd have to have a darkened room. And if you're putting a projector in a video conferencing system, having a million lumens shining directly into a camera that's picking up the video doesn't kind of really work, because one's at the back of the room shining forward and one's at the front of the room, you know, pointing back. So projection and video conferencing has never really been a good bedfellow, which is why we had like rear projection. So, you know, I think there is definitely, you know, size comes down to it first of all as to, you know, the type of display, and then kind of where you're going to put it. You can also do some very clever stuff with this direct view LED stuff. You know, you're not limited to a 16:9, 21:9 and those typical constraints. If you want to make it bendy, curvy, square, rectangle, circular, you can do some pretty clever stuff with this technology, and then be also able to do things like, you know, matrixing, splitting, and being able to break up multiple pictures in multiple different aspect ratios. So again, I'm a convert to direct view LED. I hadn't really played with it and always seen it as a bit of a way out there technology, but certainly it's coming way more down to a mainstream capability now.
Well, Brock, that's actually where I want to get your 2 cents on this, because Neil's right, it is becoming more mainstream. So how is that adjusting, or I almost say warping, the customer's expectation of displays when it comes to their conference rooms, right? Is it where they're saying, oh, you know what, just put an LED in there because LEDs are awesome and they do everything, or are they, given the transportation capabilities of your lift or elevator, whatever you call it, you know, we'll go ahead and use a regular, you know, TV.
So the industry kind of has standards, DISCA standards for how big a screen has to be for how far away the people looking at it are, and that determines your required screen height. So if you're in a 15-person boardroom and you're X number of feet away, the mandate is that you've got to have an 85-inch display. If you're in a 40-person boardroom and you're 40 feet away, maybe you're going to need a 136-inch screen in order for people to be able to read the content. Because nobody in enterprise is buying a TV as a TV. They're buying it as a tool, and it's a tool on which to read, business stuff. It's, death by PowerPoint.
Or spreadsheet.
Or a spreadsheet.
Boredom by spreadsheet, death by PowerPoint.
And it's a lot of fonts and it's a lot of words, and the screen has to be big enough so that an old guy like me at the back of the room can actually read what's being presented. And so, for our clients, we're going to sell them as big a display as they can afford. And we're going to come up with, as the industry has, all the metrics to prove that they need a bigger display. But once that bigger display gets beyond that 100-inch, we sell 110-inch LCDs. That's the largest kind of conventional 16:9 product that we buy from LG, and that will just fit into a lift or an elevator. You also have to worry about ceiling height, because an office may only be 9 feet high. An office ceiling may only be 9 feet high, and so you'd love to put a 163-inch display in, but it doesn't fit because it can't start at the floor, that doesn't make any sense, right? So there's there's lots of reasons to determine size, budget being one of them, science being the other.
I love the idea of bezel list 32:9 as well, though. That's from a video conferencing, traditional point of view, where you've got your video on one side and the content on the other side. Being able to do that bezel list 32:9, that's a really nice sweet spot for for LED.
And that's fairly common now. The twin 110s or twin 136s, depending on the size of the room, side by each. But don't tell people that they last 25 years, because that's a terrible business model. I do not want to have to wait another 25 years to sell them something new. So
sustainability, come on, we got to save the planet.
Well, it's a good point, because it may very well last 25 years. But let's say you sell them a 1080 and it's going to last 25 years. In 25 years, you're not going to want to look at a 1080 display, whether it's a DV LED or OLED or plasma or whatever.
But why? Why would you not want to look at it if you're looking at a PowerPoint or a spreadsheet?
Well, that's true. Okay, I didn't think about that.
And where the software that you're using can actually scale to whatever resolution that it needs to be to show X amount of information on the screen. Right? 1080 is fine.
1080 is not fine.
Well, I think the interesting thing would be is if you could have the display, and again, we were talking about this at InfoComm about the fact of this idea of iteration and platforms. Maybe the LED is the bit that lasts for 25 years, but maybe the compute or the controller or whatever is the engine is the bit you upgrade every 3 or 4 years to get HDR10 or you get Dolby Vision or whatever the newfangled technology. And again, the LED
to Brock's
bit.
point, though, dude. You don't need Dolby Vision in a conference room, and I
mean, I don't know what it might be, but maybe there's some new fandangled, VR, 3D or whatever
3D.
that could be enabled through
3D PowerPoint presentations.
Do we need lots of things, Tim? But it's nice. Anyway, I'm sure the idea
don't anybody tell Microsoft that somebody's looking at 3D PowerPoint presentations, because good God, they'll come out with it.
But again, hopefully, if the actual LED bit or the large bulk of it can last for a long time, but we can upgrade the engine or iterate the engine behind it, it certainly makes it a lot more environmentally friendly to ship these things around and gives customers a better protection on investment. And again, whether that's I don't know what technology is going to be around in 3, 5, 10 years, but again, if we can do it iteratively by upgrading the compute or the controller or the engine, that seems to me a lot easier and better than ripping and replacing 136-inch whatever out of the room and putting a new one in.
All right, that'll be a good place to stop. I appreciate you both. We did not get to the other story, but I'll have Mitchell still put it up on the link here. Mr. Brock McGinnis, thank you, sir. How do people connect with you or Nationwide?
I'm Brock at nationwideav.com. I'm on LinkedIn if they really want to talk to me.
All right. Mr. Fluster, how do people connect with you?
I make a nuisance of myself generally on LinkedIn, so that's the best place to come and find me and join my cool club of cool kids and enjoy the fun ride of the Fluster Vision on LinkedIn.
There you go, Fluster Vision. That's what we need next.
Yeah, that's the next upgrade.
Yes, that's the next upgrade. All right. For Tim Albright, don't follow me on the socials. I'm not very interested. I have to stop saying that. If you want to read stuff that I talk about that have nothing to do with the technology or AV, you can totally find that on LinkedIn, so you can connect with me there. But go by the website, if you would, please, AVNation.tv. That's AVNation.tv. You will find this program and a host of others, including a brand new career mastermind with our friend Jennifer Weaver. So you can check that out and more. Also, we're still talking about InfoComm a bit, just like everybody else is. You can go by the website, AVNation.tv/IC25 for all of our InfoComm coverage. If you're watching this on YouTube and you're done looking at my face, you can go subscribe to this wherever you find your podcast. And if you're listening to this and want to know what Neil looks like podcasting from his boat, you can go check us out on YouTube. So you can go either direction, but go by the website if you would, please. AVNation.tv. That's AVNation.tv. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. That is all the time we have for AV Week.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
This is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.